You're against compulsory education, aren't you?
Yes. No, I'm against public funded education.
Who's Ayn Rand? For our younger listeners, who is she?
Alan Greenspan's lover, right?
Yes.
They were. I always forget that. They actually were lovers.
Rumored to be, yeah.
So she is.
Was it a threesome with what's her name?
There was.
It was that kind of scene, yeah.
With what's her name? Wait, you know what I'm talking about. Who's he? He's been married.
Andrea Mitchell.
No.
Andrea Mitchell.
No, she wasn't around that.
He was a saxophone
player. Right?
Saxophone player.
They always get the girls.
All right. So is it fair to say that if you're a Republican or a Libertarian, your life changed when you read The Fountainhead and Atlas Shrugged? Paul Ryan, it's the Bible to people like Paul Ryan. If you want to work for Paul Ryan, the former speaker, you had to read The Fountainhead. Rush Limbaugh read The Fountainhead. It preaches individualism. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I actually never read it. I read some other work she did.
I started reading it and I found it the most transparently, line by line, ideologically overdetermined writing. Just crap.
Right. And I think it's Atlas Shrugged, the message is that if you continue to tax the truly talented, they will go on strike. They will hide. Or maybe it's The Fountainhead. Rourke goes on a strike, from what I understand. And
I don't know.
Yeah, I've had bosses who have said to me, if you keep taxing us, we'll just take our ball and go someplace else. And I thought, you read The Fountainhead. Well, this is who Ayn Rand really is. She is the soul of the Republican Party. Okay.
She's actually was I believe a radical atheist. So not really.
You do not.
She was a radical atheist.
Accept the existence of a God, a divine prime mover. Right?
No.
All right. Here are our thoughts.
Sorry for giving that away. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Sorry for giving that away. I didn't know.
I brought it.
And then, by the way, Paul Ryan was an utter lightweight. He was a Catholic Ayn Randian. I mean, basically,
right. Right. So this is who. So right there, the Republicans should know that she was an atheist. Right. Let's see. Here is her thoughts on. Let's start off easy and women.
Do you believe that there is going to be a day where there's going to be a female in the White House as president? And how do you feel about that?
I wouldn't vote for her.
You would or wouldn't?
Would not.
You would not?
No.
Why not?
For many reasons. I've written an article about that in my former magazine. You'll have to find out my reasons there.
My grandmother had a sister named Ida who was just as stupid. Sounded just like this.
Oh, Marianne Cummings, you voted for a woman that year, didn't you?
Right. Here's Ayn Rand, a follow-up question about voting for women.
Would you not vote for her because she was a woman, even if she were better qualified than any man?
If we had followed that law, I might.
That low? I think you have a very, very low opinion of women.
Let me answer this. It is not to a woman's personal interest to rule man. It puts her in a very unhappy position. I don't believe that any good woman would want that position.
So you are essentially against leadership positions for women then?
No. Oh, no. The president is not the only leadership position. There's senators and congressmen. And
it's all right for you if they run and be elected?
Oh, certainly, and I vote for them. But wait a moment. A commander-in-chief of the army, a woman, I think it's unspeakable.
When in 1979 is that? Thatcher either is getting elected or about to be elected.
And she supported Thatcher. It was 1979. Ayn Rand. The cough is from her chain smoking, as I recall. Well, so she doesn't believe in God. She doesn't think women should be president. She wouldn't vote for a woman. Let's find out what she thinks of the situation in the Middle East, right? That might be interesting, and find out what her take is on Arabs. She's very well read. So let's see what she thinks of Arabs.
I'd like to know your opinion on the United States' foreign policy and what is happening in the Middle East right now.
If you mean whose side should one be on, Israel or the Arabs, I would certainly say Israel because it's the advanced, technological, civilized country amidst a group of almost totally primitive savages who have not changed for years and who are racist and who resist Israel because it's bringing industry and intelligence and modern technology into their stagnation.
Well, you got to
I
admit.
had no idea she was so entertaining.
Yeah, you got to admit she is an intellectual and can just paint a broad brushstroke over the entire Middle East and call Arabs savages. Savages. That was the term she used. She called Arabs savages. This is 1979. This was only, 41 some odd years ago? She is the soul of monetary policy for the Republicans. Alan Greenspan, the Reagan Revolution. Arabs are savages. Well, somebody was rude and asked a follow-up question about why she called Arabs savages, which is not something you do. If you want access to guests on your show, you don't be rude to your guests, especially to Ayn Rand. Here she explains why she despises Arabs.
I don't resort to terrorism. I don't go around murdering my opponents, innocent women and children. That is what I have against the Arabs. That takes the conflict out of the sphere of civilized conflict and makes it murderous. And anyone, private citizens, who resort to force is a monster. And that's what makes me condemn and despise them.
Which makes me condemn and despise them. In 1979, she says that the Arabs kill civilians. She's a proud American, and that's something coming off the Vietnam War we went out of our way not to do. Unlike the Arabs in Vietnam, we only dropped napalm on either the Viet Cong or the North Vietnamese soldiers. There are no pictures of little girls running naked, covered in napalm. That's not what Americans would do. That's what Arabs would do. That's Ayn Rand. You want more? Or are you sick to your stomach?
I don't know how I'm going to sleep tonight.
Who do we vote for? Either the guy in the red shirt on the airplane or the woman in the red dress on the Donahue show? We can choose a favorite. Yeah, at the end.
If you could go back, anyway, you probably weren't even born in 1979. All right, can I give you? You want to go to bed?
No.
I said I was going to appall you. This is very passive aggressive on my part. I look forward. This is like.
You're doing a good job. You're doing a good job. I think you're succeeding. But Harvey still has a smile on his face, though, so you got to go a little bit harder on the stuff. But I got about 10 more minutes. So
okay, I love Professor Harvey J.K. I love you, Alan Minsky, and all week I think of ways to hurt you.
You're not going to play more Ayn Rand, though, are you?
What more could a friend do, David?
Here, before we get rid of the Ayn Rand, and we should. This is her on. This is something up, Alan. Professor Harvey J.K. is an authority on FDR, and he'll appreciate Ayn Rand's take on what happened during World War II.
If we all became more comfortable with our natural tendencies, that is to say, selfishness, there would be less horror, less war, less Hitler.
There wouldn't be any.
So the more selfish we are, the more kind, the more tranquil and peaceful the world in which we live?
And more benevolent toward other people.
Yeah.
I think that's what cannibalism is, right? You said it.
People say to me, I read her and she changed my life.
Right?
She changed my life. One more.
I had a girlfriend in 1970, summer, fall, who gave me, I don't know, it was Atlas. I don't remember which book it was, but it was a small book. Was there a book, Anthem? Did she do a book, Anthem?
Probably.
I can't remember. The point is, I read it and I thought, my God, and I just was horrified. So I actually, beyond that, I've never really read Ayn Rand. And I was really amazed that she became in such a significant writer to the right. Okay. But it was just further proof of the intellectual vacuousness on the right. And now in England, the Conservative Party was sometimes called the stupid party. And I think that would probably be, at least in intellectual terms, the best description of the Republican parties for decades.
So when we complain about Trumpism and like the Republicans have gotten worse, no, they're just saying what you're not supposed to say. She despises Arabs. She thinks Americans don't kill innocent civilians. She's godless. She hates women.
She's got an accent.
She got an accent. This is Alan. You're steeped in economics, correct?
Yeah, and she's written a book called Capitalism: The Unknown Ideal. But we actually, I think, we're looking at her on her. That was her press junket for, I'm guessing, for her 1979 work, Introduction to Objectivist Epistemology. Anthem was written 41 years before that.
And do you object to objectivism? It seems reasonable to me. Well, let me run this one by Alan Minsky. And here is her. This is, she influenced the maestro, Alan Greenspan.
I want to make sure I understand you, Ms. Rand. Why is it so? I'm still not quite sure why you're so harsh on those who would sacrifice for other people.
Because I look at them. Just look at them. Because they don't hesitate to sacrifice whole nations. Look at Russia. Communism is based on altruism. Look at Nazi Germany. The Nazis were more explicit than even the Russians in preaching self-sacrifice and altruism, and self-sacrifice for the state, for the folk, the people. Every dictatorship is based on altruism. Now, you can't fight it by merely saying it's a difference of opinion. It's a difference of life and death.
That's an absurd statement about Nazi ideology.
What? Hitler was an altruist.
Yeah, no,
that's what she just said. She said the Nazis were altruistic. I think she said they were more selfless and altruistic
than communist
Stalin. Now you're
Stalin, yeah, too, but no. Stalin, even with the 5-year plans and 2 + 2 = 5. The billboards around Russia, meaning that you overhit your productivity so that we can hit the 5-year plan in 4 years, and other things around that. The level of discipline and the inculcation in the sense of sacrifice for the state, for the Volk, and the Nazi ideology wasn't all discipline, but it's such a strong component of it. That's a ridiculous reading of it.
You don't think Hitler was altruistic?
They're very, very, the drawn off of German militarism and bringing that central into the culture and the way that young people were raised. No, that's not an alternate or self.
I think Hitler. I think altruism, and that's why altruism is wrong. And if I see somebody, when Bill Gates gives $60 billion to wipe out malaria and that kind of altruism, he's a Nazi. That's, I think, of Hitler. This is pretty good, Professor K. You got to admit, this is pretty good.
Well, I was trying to decide if I would tell you, I don't know if anybody remembers the time Alan Greenspan appeared before Congress, and they asked, Sorry, I don't know if I can't say it. David, remind me to tell you an Alan Greenspan story. I can't do it here.
Is this one after the financial crisis?
This one had to do with the fact that somebody said, how is it that she changed her life? And he said, she gave, Jesus Christ, she gave great head, David.
That was altruism to give head. What kind of person is that who would give head to a person? That's
it's done out of selfishness, David.
There's that great testimony after the financial crisis.
Right, that was what he said.
Right.
He said
that's with Bernie. Yeah, is that when he said that? That's oh boy, yeah,
yeah. Well, she was very prescient. She was asked about monopoly and free markets.
How do you avoid? Let's take your thesis then and accept it now. I'm going to be selfish. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to be real talented and charismatic, and I'm going to develop a lot of wealth, and I'm going to have a lot of money and a lot of banks, and pretty soon nobody's going to be able to compete with me because I've already purchased all my competitors. And now I have dictatorial power over people, and I can name the price of bacon or price of oil or whatever it is, the commodity I'm selling.
You know, I agree with you that you're very talented and you could accomplish a great deal and already have, but you're talking about the impossible. In a free society, nobody can become a monopolist or a dictator. The system itself, the free market, will destroy you.
There's no such thing as a monopoly in a free market. And I think that's true. And she was asked this.
How do you explain Mobil Oil, Exxon? How do you explain the prices that they're able to charge for?
I think that they're stupid appeasers who get too little and put up with too much.
Who, the oil companies?
Yes.
You
Now, yes, here you have to let me explain.
All right.
If President Carter's own policy admits that we need the oil company and that the lack of oil is a serious national crisis,
Right.
which might lead to the stoppage of all industry. If that is what we need, by what right can we tell those men, go ahead and produce what we want, while we're insulting you, while we're trying to control your business, and while we're not leaving you that which you produced? Today, it's crudely obvious if we need the oil companies, we have only one of two choices. Either we produce oil ourselves, and no government has ever done it or can do it, or we have to accept the oil companies' terms, pay them whichever they can get. The more they get, the more credit to them, because that means the country needs it and pays them. They produce something needed by the people. And we must say thank you instead of putting or proposing to put a tax on them in order to give the money to the government who does nothing. The government doesn't contribute anything except impediments.
All right.
And she also collected Social Security. I swear to you, Professor Harvey J. Kaye, it's like I'm visiting my grandmother in the Bronx and one of her stupid friends is talking. It's like I'm hearkening back to my childhood and hearing some idiot neighbor of my grandmother's. It's almost, I'm getting so nostalgic. And finally,
in relationship to your atheism, how do you think that ITT and Xerox and General Motors won't overrun the world with their power? Do you believe that there is some powerful good, like 360 degrees, that always has to come back to good?
No.
What do you think is going to make them stop the monopolies or over
The acquisition of more power.
I have already made clear, A, I don't believe that they're evil. B, they don't have the power to run the world. Money is not power in the political sense. You cannot buy control.
I'll tell you, she was so prophetic when you consider where is Xerox now?
or IT&T.
Or I heard that, yeah, the IT&T, yeah.
Or what was the other one? General Motors or Dita Beard? Go ahead, Alan Minsky.
You know, I went to the Wikipedia page, and I didn't know this, actually. So Atlas Shrugged was really her last novel. It was 1957. After that, she only wrote nonfiction. I was clicking on some of the titles, one of which is 1971 is called The New Left. Maybe there's some reading there for you, Harvey, along with You know, if you're pursuing the literature of Josh Hawley, you know, you can check out. Yeah, you can check out the New Left.
Who would have ever thought of the expression, the literature of Josh Hawley?
Oh, of course. And here's what one reviewer said about the book, The New Left. It is shrill proclamations that are more negative than positive, more destructive than. And so these are just jerrymades against the left that she wrote and published in the.
That is now the standard right-wing literary style. You know.
Yeah. Is it?
Oh God, yeah. Mike, what's the name? No, what's Levin's first name? The guy he's got a book out, American Marxism, or Ben Shapiro, or on and on.
Is Hawley? But Hawley's a little better than that, you say.
Well, Hawley's a shocker because Hawley actually was pulling a Reagan. He was trying to hijack a left argument, whereas all these guys, all they do is a diatribe against the left. Hawley doesn't do that in his book at all. He doesn't go after the left at all.
Yeah, so we'll wrap it up. And thank you. You've really whetted my appetite to torture. I think this is a new show called Let's Torture Harvey J.K. I think I did a pretty good job punching you tonight, Professor Harvey J.K. Didn't I? Did I make you sick to your stomach?
Well, I have to tell you that guy on the airplane, that was like comical. That was okay. The one before that is what really made me sick. That guy on Fox.
Right.
You know, because
let me ask you a serious question. I just played you about 10 clips of Ayn Rand saying that charity is bad. If you're altruistic, you're as bad as Hitler. I don't believe in God. I despise Arabs because they're savages. This is what she said. She called the Arabs savages. Hundreds of millions of Arabs in the Middle East. They're savages. She says, I despise Arabs because they kill innocent civilians, something Americans never do. She said that we should thank Mobil Oil because they produce something. Instead of taxing Mobil Oil, we should thank them. She said that money and politics are separate, that no matter how much money you have, you can't buy power. She said she would never vote for a woman for president. So is it fair to say that she is a despicable, or was a despicable, godless animal? Is that fair to say, that to publicly admit what she is willing to admit? Imagine what she's not willing to say on the Phil Donahue show. Is it fair to say that Ayn Rand was a despicable monster?
Yeah, I don't know if I'd use the word. I generally don't refer to people as animals, even if we are animals, because it's kind of but despicable. I mean, yeah.
She a savage, Alan? Is she is it fair to say that?
I think she ended up being the beneficiary of the U.S. welfare state at some point.
Yeah, she collected social, as did Hayek.
More than Social Security. She received government assistance
and she was a multimillionaire.
I don't think during the period that she got the assistance.
Okay. So is it fair to say that her writings give intellectual cover to humanity's basest instincts? Is that a fair conclusion? That you can't admit that you're a hateful human being, so you wrap it in, what is it called, objectivism?
I actually have a slight appreciation for it in that whenever somebody, and this happens a lot in my generation, a little bit younger than you guys, people speak, they're talking about books, and then they talk of their appreciation for Ayn Rand. And that frees me from ever having to give the person another thought.
Yeah.
So it's really served that purpose very well in my life.